Hey, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. I'm Dr. Arielle Hammond, and this is the Enrichment Entrepreneur, a podcast for current and aspiring entrepreneurs who are in the business of helping kids thrive. We're talking after school programs, summer camps, tutoring, enrichment, the people and places that show up for kids outside the classroom. I'm still building right alongside you, and that's exactly why we're here, to learn, grow, and figure this out together.
Let's go!
Hi, I'm Arielle. Welcome back, Enrichment Entrepreneur. And we're going to talk about how to pay instructors. As soon as you scale beyond you gotta have a plan. Or not, and you just figure it out like I did. You just gotta hope for the best and continually make mistakes and clean them up and learn and grow and go along. All right. So, oh gosh, this is a rough start. How's everybody doing? Doing good? Cool. Instructor pay is something that I got wrong for way too long. I'm just not a details person and got to do a lot of calculations. And there are always these different circumstances where I don't where am I keeping all this information? I have my spreadsheets, but so-and-so's parent picked them up 10 minutes late and okay, where was that? And those types of things. Or, okay, you subbed for this class. I forgot to add that one in. Or, oh, nope. And then we had the inclement weather day. So then can't just go by the schedule with this. Okay. Trauma dumping my instructor payroll woes. Let's start from where I started and like where I'm at now. So, with instructor payroll, I started with direct depositing into people's Chase accounts. Well, we had a Chase business account and direct deposited transfer into their checking accounts. And I had to manually keep track of everyone's wages. Everyone was hired as independent contractors. They got to pick their assignments and things like that and their own schedules. And of course, this is based in Oregon. Every state is different and has different requirements and classification criteria for employee versus independent contractor. So you need to check with your legal counsel, familiar with employment law in your state, as I have. But yes, I started that way. And then I had to keep a running I want to say score or running, keep track of how much everyone had earned throughout the year. So I had that in the spreadsheet, and my husband, outside of his job, would make the stubs for me because we couldn't find any platform that did it free or simply. So he would manually make these pay stubs. He did a good job. Yeah. So that's what we did. And I got it wrong quite a few times, and I just don't like messing up anybody's money. Like, I can mess up my money, but not somebody else's. So if there's one thing that I really don't like messing up, and I'm pretty hard on myself about it, in business, it's messing up money. Whether, a customer is supposed to get a discounted rate, but they paid the full rate, or, an instructor taught this amount of hours. I had it wrong on the schedule and I calculated it wrong. And now I have to retroactively add that. Like, I just don't like not getting it right the first time. But that was where a lack of systems left me, like, to my own devices. So there was some of that. And I was like manually doing the math. I kind of like staying sharp with my math. So there's a little element of that. But even when I use my phone calculator app, I still made mistakes every now and again. So I thought, okay, all right. When you're in charge of logging your own time, that won't be an issue, me thinking, for an instructor. So we mainly my husband, researched a lot of different platforms for our needs and found that there wasn't a platform for contractors to report their time on a weekly basis. Like there was just an employee platform for that. So we started using Gusto. Was that the next step? Yes, I think the next step was Gusto. And used that until recently. And mainly since I had employees, I had operations employees, full-time, part-time, and instructors. And so tried to make that all fit. And I really wanted a platform where people could report their own time because I believe that I can get it wrong if it's me doing this for 15 people, but for each of those 15 people, like they're locked in on their compensation. They know how many hours they worked. It's going to be accurate. And that was not the case. And that was so frustrating. I thought maybe it was, like a learning curve that people just need to get into the cadence, the rhythm of logging their time. No, I couldn't even expect people to log their time like on a daily basis. So I'm like, hey, everybody, it runs on Mondays. Can you please make sure you do it the weekend? And people would forget. And then not all the time would I catch it. So then it would get to I've had cases where, I've overpaid by hundreds, underpaid. I mean, and I relied on people self-reporting and I didn't have the system that tied the actual schedule to what was reported for payroll so that I could easily compare the two. It was all manual, so there were discrepancies there. And it was just a huge headache. And I paid a lot of money for Gusto. You pay like per person. I paid so much just for no additional benefit. Like still so much had to be cleaned up after. Um and I still had to manually run payroll and do all that work. So my weekends and Monday mornings were still full of making sense of this. It was like a terrible way to start my week and a terrible way to start my son's life. So I knew that we had to run payroll when I was in labor with our son. And so my husband had to bring the laptop and he ran it for me. Like before, I'm like, okay, let me try to do it. Well, no, okay. I did it and he did the stubs. And then I got so like, I can't. And so he would do it for me on weekends. And when I went into labor with our third child, payroll still had to be ran on Monday and I was in labor. It's like Sunday night. So I'm in active labor in the hospital. He made sure he brought that laptop because can't be late. Can't be late. And he's running that payroll. He's running that payroll in labor and delivery. And I was like, something's got to give. Something's got to give. So yeah. So then, that was still using Gusto, which works for employees, for full-time salaried employees. It works. I still use it for that. But for everything else, it does not. And even for full-time employees, everything is, an add-on. So your 401k stuff is going to be an add-on. Any additional benefit quick break. I'm building NROPS, an all-in-one operations platform built specifically for kids enrichment, entrepreneurs, and operators. I built it because I needed it. Go to getenrops.com to learn more and get on the list. Okay, back to the episode. Until we built NROPS. And so part of the all-in-one solution that I thought, what are the biggest pain points that this always comes down, it always comes down to this, was that weekly payroll. Now that we are able to do it through the platform, everything is accurate. It's all live. So we know if a sub was assigned and who taught it, that the sub was assigned through the platform. We know all of that information without there having to be these additional communication steps. It's accurate. And then payment is processed, payroll and all that is done through the platform. It's like, waiting to exhale. Great classic movie. Great classic movie soundtrack. And I want to sing it right now, but I'm not going to. Whitney's a classic. Whitney Houston. If you love Whitney Houston, this is your sign. Listen to some Whitney today. But anyway, yeah. So that's my journey with payroll woes. If you have a great system, like, more power to you. I've gone through it, and the frustrating part, there are so many frustrating parts. Every part about it is frustrating, but a uniquely, distinctly frustrating part about this is the switching costs, that friction. You feel it more the more people you have. It's not just, I'm switching my personal bank account from this bank to that bank. That only affects me. But you have to think of the reputation of your business to your team when you are switching between different platforms for anything. We use this for communication. Now we use that. You can access your curriculum and your schedule here. Now you got to do this. You got to do this form. No, wait. Now you got to do this form. Wait, you had to do that paperwork. No more. Now you got to do this. I know you did this before over here, but now we're using that. So you got to redo this. I mean, already in this type of business, there are a lot of different processes. For example, the fall onslaught of background checks. So if you have a team, say each instructor teaches at 4 or 5 different schools or locations, maybe that's 3 different districts in a private school. So they may have to do 4 or 5 background checks just for their terms teaching load. And you might want to have some backups so that you have as wide of a pool as possible for sub fill-in capacity there. So you might have your team filling out 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 background checks for the school year. That doesn't include summer camps and all that type of stuff. So I'm just very sensitive about the requirements for additional, like, documentation and processes and things like that, especially because schools and certain school districts have their own training that instructors have to go through outside of our businesses. And this is like a part-time job. So we just have to be, like, very intentional and considerate, and as intentional and considerate as possible, while remaining nimble and responsive to what's not working and trying to move to greener pastures, something that's going to work a little bit better. So yeah, that's my journey there. I mean, it's a mess. It's a mess out there. So, and I know I've done done the research, and that was the best I could get to. Like, oh, yikes. But it's just one of those cases that, like, goes to show when something is made like 60% of the way that we need it for this type of business, still it creates an additional set of issues, errors, headaches, and additional work to be done. So not only do we have to pay for those platforms and different tools, then we have to pay a time tax as well. And then something else that I'll mention for this one is an interesting finding. So I'm always willing to try. I'm willing to try anything, even if that thing doesn't make monetary sense immediately. But if it works, it could really help. So one of those things was different like bonuses, incentives, because we thought, all right, well, number one, we already pay our instructors at the higher end of the scale for similar roles and jobs for our after school programs. They're an hour. Instructors are paid $60 per after school session for Portland Metro 2026. And we wanted to use compensation as a representation of like our appreciation and to encourage and incentivize loyalty and to have less turnover than is normal in our industry, which is super duper high. If 1 in 3 instructors resign within their first 90 days, like we wanted to not be that statistic. So, all right. Before adding this huge list of incentives, turnover wasn't too high, but it was kind of starting to speed up a little bit, just as we scaled. And once we implemented this like menu of different incentives for like some we'd already done, like if you're traveling a longer distance, I think like maybe over 30 minutes, 25, 30 minutes one way to a location. All right, let's recognize that with like gas mileage type of reimbursement, make it a flat rate. We wanted to encourage teaching 5 days a week because there are efficiencies that come with having a smaller team that teaches more. For us, very material heavy business, those efficiencies are at the material level where that's an extra kit of robotics that we don't have to order because our teaching staff is fully mobilized. So, wanted to encourage that. So, the high teaching load incentive, retention incentives as you stayed at different drop-off points that we saw were pretty common in our industry. And just from our data, I think at 3 months, 6 months, and then maybe 12 months, it would go up how much the compensation was per after-school program. And off the top of my head, I don't have it up in front of me, but might have been something like $65, $75, something like that. What else? Instructor of the month. And one instructor is selected, they receive that bonus and like shout out. Materials, if they had a program that maybe had more materials, or ones that maybe weren't as like easy to just pick up and teach. You kind of had to read the lesson plan to make sure you knew how to teach that specific coding lesson. So like maybe coding, I don't know why I'm saying maybe, but coding, robotics, programs. If someone was teaching a program for the first time, we want them to give us that feedback and kind of partner with us as we pilot programs. So incentives for that. And what we found was that there was no positive impact on retention and even reported satisfaction. In fact, over that time, our retention decreased. So it was the inverse. And what our program manager found is that to have that type of structure and for that to be a leading part of the beginning conversations with instructors, with candidates, going over, and we get bonuses for this and this and this and this and this, and if you do this, you get this. It actually created like I want to say like a nickel and dime mentality, but it created like a very different experience, perception, way of thinking of this role and this partnership than we anticipated. Um, and yeah, it didn't have any difference. It didn't have any impact, no positive impact on the job satisfaction and retention that we intended it to have. So yeah, that was another experiment that was failed, and I was ready for it to be a smashing success. Let's be real. I was ready for it to go very well, um, but it was very expensive to have so many, um, to already pay at the higher end, and then to add so many different things on top of it. Sometimes I can lead from like what feels right, and I just want to do right by people and not necessarily from good business. And the business profit margins really suffered dramatically. So now that that has been right sized, we're in a better place with that. But it was an experiment worth trying. But I'd be interested to know like what things others have tried that have been impactful. And it's interesting because as I think of that question, I remember one thing that we did that had a outsized impact was having informal gatherings where people could come and like be in community because when they're teaching, they're isolated, especially if you have a mobile business. Instructors don't really get to cross paths in the hallway as much. They don't get to meet unless they are like co-teaching, but it's not part of their daily experience, and they appreciated just having fun and connecting and being part of a team. So we've done things like karaoke nights, trivia nights, and those things are really, really fun. And I've connected to a couple other people in the space, and they said that when they've done informal gatherings that did a lot for just like morale, culture, and feeling like belonging, connectedness, and a sense of loyalty for their businesses. So it's like, yeah, sometimes those things that are just so human, doubling down on those things and putting, the $10 that may not have that impact on the paycheck could be used to plan a very thoughtful, fun connecting experience for the team. So yeah, just just sharing my thoughts there. Yeah, but I mean, overall, this is a space where a lot of us just vary based on where we are, based on the types of enrichment we have. If we're facility based, if we do private lessons, if we're doing online. I mean, there are just so many different circumstances especially just depending on the legality of the different states that we're in and um, current or the latest updates to IRS classifications, all that stuff. Got to make sure we're right with Uncle Sam. So yeah, that's an area where it would be nice in our industry if there was more support there for us, more guidance. But I think that's why we have each other as a community. And this is one of those areas, yeah, where, we have to do our research, our due diligence, stay connected in community. This is an area where people in our state may be a bit more of a relevant resource and butting up to our our local labor attorney, employment labor attorney, and and then sharing best practices, what works. Um, and trying out MROPs. There you go. It works for me. It works for us. And the beautiful part is that the more users we have, the more robust those features will be for instructor management and payroll and things like that. So for all the different instructor needs that we have, MROPs can be and will be developed to meet those needs. So yay. All right, enough of my rambling. I think I've covered everything with with enrichment instructors. What not to do. I told you a lot of what not to do from what I did. And an option, FUBU, for us, by us. Yeah. All right, everyone. I'll see you all next time. Until then, double check your payroll numbers, do the math again. Good luck. Godspeed. Bye. And one more thing. Remember, I'm building NROPS, finally, an all-in-one platform built specifically for kids, enrichment, entrepreneurs, and operators. We're talking everything all in the same place. Finally, from scheduling to instructor management to partner and parent communication to onboarding and registration, all of it. I built it because we need it. So go to getinrops.com to get on the list. See you next episode.
And that's a wrap. Know someone who needs to hear this episode? Share it because
Sharing is caring.
if this episode earned it, give us all the stars in a review on whatever platform you're listening on because it helps other enrichment entrepreneurs find this show.
Until next time, keep learning, keep building.